Welcome to Learn English Practical 24/7 with Harvey.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Monday signed a law that bans children in the state under the age of 14 from having a social media account. The measure requires parental permission before 14 and 15-year-olds can sign up for personal social media accounts in Florida. Supporters say the bill protects children from possible online harm, including threats to mental health and privacy. Critics have said the law might violate the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment protection of free speech. Some opponents have said they think parents, not the government, should be the ones to decide which restrictions are best for their child. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, opposed the legislation, for example. Florida's legislature passed the law earlier this month. It was the second version of the measure. The first version, which passed Florida's legislature in February, would have completely banned children under age 16 from social media. DeSantis vetoed that version of the bill, saying he thought it was too restrictive of parental rights. But the governor's office worked with legislators to come up with a new measure he could support. The new law leaves it up to parents to decide whether their 16 and 17-year-olds can sign up for social media accounts. In a statement, DeSantis said research had repeatedly shown that social media services can harm children in several major ways. The legislation, he added, is designed to give parents a greater ability to protect their children. The law is set to take effect on January 1st, 2025, but experts say the measure is likely to face legal challenges in court. DeSantis noted that another bill he signed into law 2 years ago was recently struck down by a federal appeals court. That law banned employers from requiring training sessions that included discussions about race, diversity, and other issues. The appeals court ruled that such training methods violated the constitutional free speech rights of employers. The new law was guided through Florida's House of Representatives by Republican Speaker Paul Renner. At a bill signing ceremony at a school, Renner said a child whose brain is still developing doesn't have the ability to know that they're being sucked into these addictive technologies. He added, "Because of that, we have to step in for them." The bill does not name any specific social media service, but it states that it targets social media sites using tools to get users to stay online for long periods. The measure does not cover services that mainly provide email, messaging, or texting services. The law requires social media companies to permanently remove personal information collected from closed accounts, and it lets parents bring civil lawsuits against services failing to do so. Several U.S. states have considered similar legislation. In March 2023, Utah became the first to enact laws covering children's use of social media. Measures in Arkansas, Louisiana, Ohio, and Texas soon followed. Several other states are also developing new rules. The Arkansas law required parental consent for minors to create new social media accounts. A federal judge blocked the law in August. The judge ruled the legislation was likely unconstitutional. Florida has enacted additional measures aimed at protecting children from possible technological harms. Last year, it became the first state to strongly restrict phones in schools. The law requires all public schools in Florida to ban student cell phone use and block social media services during class. I'm Brian Lynn.
Theo works days, nights, and weekends in the tulip fields in the Netherlands and never complains of sore muscles. How is this possible? Theo is an artificial intelligence, or AI, robot that looks for diseased flowers each spring. The work prevents viruses from spreading among the valuable plants. The robot looks for troubled tulip bulbs and destroys them if necessary. They are removed from the healthy ones in a processing center after the harvest. There are 45 robots like Theo working in the tulip fields of the Netherlands. Their job becomes important as the winter turns to spring and peak season nears. People come from around the world to see the colorful flowers. Alain Visser's family has been growing tulips for 3 generations. This is the second season that he has used a robot. He said, "It is very costly. The same as a sports car, about $200,000. In the past, knowledgeable farmers would walk the fields looking for tulips that showed signs of sickness. I prefer to have the robot because a sports car doesn't take out the sick tulips from our field," he said. "Yeah, it is expensive, but there are less and less people who can really see the sick tulips. The robot has been trained to see the sick plants. Red stripes show up on the leaves of infected plants. The robots roll through the fields very slowly, about 1 kilometer per hour, looking for sick tulips." Visser called the work precision agriculture as he explained how the robots work. He said the robots have cameras and take thousands of photos of the tulips. The AI software considers the photos and decides which tulips need to be killed. The robot has learned to recognize this and treat it, Visser said. H2L Robotics is the company that makes the robots. Eric de Jong is the managing director. He said the robots use GPS coordinates to be sure they are killing the correct tulip among many tulips in the field. He said all of the knowledge they use in the computer program that informs the robot comes from tulip farmers. Farmers like Theo van der Voort. He is the farmer that the robot is named after. Van der Voort retired after 52 years of looking for sick flowers in his fields. "It's fantastic," he said. "It sees just as much as I see." I'm Dan Friedel.
Most people around the world speak 1 or 2 languages, but some can speak 3 or more. These people are called polyglots, and they are helping researchers better understand how the human brain deals with language. In a new study, a team of scientists monitored the brain activity of 34 polyglots. The polyglots spoke between 5 and 54 languages. The scientists used a method called functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI. In fMRI, the brain is studied through images that measure changes in blood flow in different areas of the brain. The researchers used fMRI to study the brain as the polyglots listened to different languages. The researchers found that when the polyglots heard a language they knew, activity increased in the area of the brain involved with language processing. That area is the cerebral cortex. When they listened to a language they did not know or knew less well, there was less activity in the cerebral cortex. Evelina Fedorenko is a brain scientist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a member of MIT's McGovern Institute for Brain Research. She was also a senior writer of the study, which recently appeared in the publication Cerebral Cortex. She explained the findings. We think this is because when you process a language that you know well, you can engage the full suite of linguistic operations, the operations that the language system in your brain supports, Fedorenko said. However, an exception caught the attention of the researchers. For many of the polyglot participants, listening to their native language produced less of a brain response compared to hearing other languages they knew. On average, the response was about 25% less. And in some of the polyglots, listening to their native language activated only one part of the brain's language network, not the whole thing. Olesia Jaroflov is a brain scientist at Carleton University in Canada. He also helped write the report. He said that the brain's neural processes were more efficient or effective when the polyglots heard their native language. Therefore, the language network in the brain does not activate as much as when they do native versus non-native language processing, Jaroflov said. The brain's language network involves a few areas in its frontal and temporal lobes. Saima Malik Moreleda is a doctoral student at the Harvard-MIT program in Speech and Hearing Bioscience and Technology. She was one of the lead writers of the study. She said the findings suggest that the way the brain finds or extracts meaning in language governs the brain's response to language. The more meaning you can extract from the language input you are receiving, the greater the response in language regions, except for the native language, she said. Of the 34 polyglots who took part in the study, 20 were men and 14 were women. They were between 19 and 71 years old. 21 were native English speakers. The rest were native speakers of French, Russian, Spanish, Dutch, German, Hungarian, and Mandarin Chinese. Researchers monitored the polyglots' brain activity as they listened to recordings in 8 languages. 1 was their native language. 3 were languages they spoke well, somewhat well, or somewhat. The other 4 were languages they did not know. Half heard recordings of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. The other half heard recordings of stories from the Christian religious book, the Bible. Fedorenko noted that a lot of work in language research has been centered on individuals with linguistic difficulties. But she said there is a lot that researchers can learn about the language process by studying so-called language experts, too. That includes polyglots, Fedorenko added. I'm Jill Robbins.
Challenge. Diversity. Get sucked into something. Monitor. Precision agriculture. Fantastic.
Well done. Get ready to unlock your English potential. Subscribe to Learn English Practical 24/7 for regular updates and dive into the world of practical English learning. Thank you very much.